back to another video. So today I was sitting down to redo my manicure. The Jamberry nail wraps did not last long. In fact, they didn't even last a whole day before they started peeling off. I probably put them on wrong, but it was just too frustrating, so I just crossed that bridge, went over it. But yeah, so I did a nail hardener. I just put nail hardener on my nails since they were still kind of very weak from the acrylic, very thin and weak. And it's been a few weeks now. They've had some time to grow. They're a decent length now. So I just wanted to put something on them. I'm not going to be doing another acrylic manicure right away. I usually only go to the salon when I want like a specific design or to get acrylics. So I just thought I'd want to put on something to kind of cover and protect the nail now that's definitely had some time to grow. So I'm going to remove what's left of the nail hardener. It's a very, very chipped and frailing. Well, this is acrylic. It's not salon acrylic. I've used these many times. It's the Impress Nails press-on manicure. Now, I've never used this one before. It's called True Nude. I went to Target looking for like a basic French tip, just something very simple. I'm not really all that crazy with the colors on my fingers. I had that green for a while, but I really wasn't crazy about it. So I prefer softer, more natural things. So I thought I'd try this. I was the closest I could find to a French tip from what the selection they had at the time, at least in the Impress nails. Now I do use, the Impress is by, I believe is by Kiss. I have used other Kiss nails before, but I really like Impress because they already have the glue on them and you just peel, stick, and it's done. There's no fighting with a glue bottle, trying to clean up glue around your fingers once you're done with the nails on. I hate that. So I really only use the Impress now if I do fake nails. So we'll see how it goes. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would just sit and talk with you guys and, talk a little bit more about who I am, where I come from, and answer some common questions. And yeah, so while I'm working on this, I'll just be chit-chatting. Welcome to today's video. Alright, so I'm going to start by basically ripping off the band-aid with the thing that people never expect to hear me say. It always gets a head-turning reaction, so I can already see your expressions when I say this. I'm from Guatemala. Born and raised for a good part of my life. My parents were in the missions field. That's how they met. And my dad had his heart set on Guatemala, and I am very certain his heart is still in Guatemala. He would be living there now if he could, but after probably a collective decade over the two different times that they lived there, my mom has had enough and does not want to go back there. So they are now happily settled here, close to where we live in Maryland. But yeah, so I was born there. My parents left when I was 10 months old and went to South Florida so my dad could go back to school. Education is very important to him, and he has multiple degrees. But yeah. I thought the polish wasn't coming off. It is, but there's still just kind of some really well-buffed, rough areas from the acrylics. Anyway, sidebar. Talking about Guatemala. And we lived in South Florida. My dad went to the University of Florida until I was 12. And we returned over December, I think it was throughout the month of December, to Guatemala. I remember we were actually on the road still on Christmas Day. And when we got there, we had a little bit of a Christmas, but I'm pretty sure it was in January by that point. I don't really remember a whole lot. I was 12, a whole lot of the details, but I do remember that. I remember being very excited because my whole life I had heard so much about Guatemala and being born there, kind of feeling like I was from there. My birth certificate is Guatemalan, it's in Spanish. So we headed back. We went, and my dad asked my brothers and I have two brothers, one older, one younger. He asked us if we would prefer to fly or if we wanted to take buses through Mexico. And we were just absolutely enamored with the idea of seeing Mexico. So we weren't going to be living there, we were just staying there. So we took the buses down. That was an interesting trip. But I'm not going to get off on a lot of random tangents and storytelling. So, long story short, we lived there until I was almost 17. I'm pretty sure I had we came back in June, so July. So it would have been 3 months before I turned 17 when we came back. And I was excited. My older brother had already come back to the States to go to college, and we were coming back partly for that reason. I was getting ready to go to college in a year. I was a junior in high school, so I was getting ready to go to college, and my dad was going back to school again, this time for a doctorate degree. At this point, he already had, I believe he has, at that point, he only had one master's degree. He now has two. He got a second one in his doctorate, so yeah, that's very high. He very highly values education. But yeah, so we came back. We moved here to Maryland because my father was going to the Catholic University of DC. So we weren't going to live in DC, but we did move here to Maryland. And I have on and off been here ever since. I finished high school in homeschool. That's a little tad bit because of the growing up abroad. We were homeschooled. I did not go to any public schools. Actually, I never went to public school ever in my childhood. Even though I was 12 when we moved away from Florida, we never went to public school. My mom always homeschooled. So we get down there and we're really excited. My brothers and I, we are so excited about living there, about going there. And then you get there and you realize, oh, I don't speak the language. Of course, we knew that going there, but it's a very different thing to know that Spanish is the primary language and not English, and actually get there and then have to try to live life that way. My younger brother, Peter, picked it up very quickly. He was only 9, so it wasn't hard for him at all to pick up on it. It took me a little longer, and by nature, I'm a more shy person, so it definitely took me a while to get my nerve up to leave the house. And after I did end up making some friends there, some pretty good friends, some I still keep in touch with to this day, thanks to Facebook International Communications. They're all grown now, of course, too, and many of them have kids of their own also, and I haven't seen them since I was 16. It's been, oh my goodness, it's been almost 20 years, probably about 17 years, I think, since we left Guatemala. And we ended up coming back to the States. Sorry, I'm trying to match numbers on these nails while talking. And we moved here to Maryland. Now, I have ended up here in Maryland, but I did not stay here in Maryland right after high school. I went to college. So I did 2 years of a community college here, and then I went to University of Massachusetts. At that point in my life, I wanted to get as far away from here, as far away from my parents, I'll put it that way, it wasn't Maryland, as far away from my parents as I could. Oh my goodness, I was so exhausted, I guess you could say, worn out, I was a normal teenager. You want your freedom. I wanted to get away, so I went far away. Now, all these years later, and all those out-of-state student loan bills later, I kind of wish I'd gone more local, but at the same time, I don't think I would have had the same college experience or learned the same lessons I did had I stayed closer to my parents or stayed living with my parents. At this point, I was 100% in rebellion, not solely from my parents, but also from God. I am a strong Christian woman now. I consider my faith to be strong. I have what I consider to be a strong relationship with God, personally. But during those first years back here out on my own, I did not want any sort of, like any normal kid, I didn't want any sort of supervision, any sort of rules. So I rebelled big time. the funny thing is, and I've told many people this, I never stopped believing in God. I always have. But there was that time in my life where I was like, I don't want anything to do with you. And I went out in the world. I tried it my way. I tried it on my own. Didn't go so well. It definitely did not go the way I had thought it would. I was successful. I graduated college. I got my first big job outside after college. I got my first apartment on my own. I got my cat, Victoria, who you've still seen running around. She's still kicking all these years later. But I was so unbelievably lonely. It was like I couldn't even breathe sometimes. Of being alone in my apartment, I just felt I had no friends. I had no community. No one. And it was in that loneliness that God kind of started to nudge me a bit, whisper, remind me that he was still there. And I started trying to find a church, which was a multi-year-long process of disappointment. I went to so many different churches trying to find one where I could fit in and where I could have a community. And it burned me out. So it was to the point where I wasn't rebelling. I wasn't having a wild life anymore. I wasn't partying like I was in college. But I was lonely. And it was hard feeling rejected. I remember one church in particular. It was a very small Presbyterian church. It was in walking distance from my apartment because at this point I didn't have my driver's license yet. And I remember going in there and just the few people who even looked at me just gave me the dirtiest looks. Like I have never felt so alien or so unwelcome. And it was a very small church. It just felt like they had their congregation. They didn't want to extend it out beyond. They didn't want new people. I'll put it that way. So I clearly never went back there ever again. And I tried, a couple other churches throughout the time, and I just couldn't find anywhere that was right. So I wasn't really straying so much anymore as I was just disappointed. And I also, not feeling like I had any friends outside of my job. And I definitely didn't have any romantic relationships. That sucked. That was hard. And after my first year, I ended up getting laid off of the job I had gotten. I was there just under exactly a year. And I had to go find another job, and I had saved so little because the apartment I had was way more expensive than I should have had for my income rate. It was probably 60% of my income. It was ridiculous how much my money was went to just paying my rent. And then I had my cat on top of that, and pets are expensive. Pet visits, oh my goodness, pets are expensive. So I didn't make the wisest financial decisions when I was first out on my own. I did my best. I felt like I was doing my best. So I did end up finding another job relatively quickly. And this job was what led me to meeting my husband. I met him in my 3rd month at that job. I was just finishing my training, and he was just starting his at our sister branch. So what I mean by sister branch is, well, you're going to find out what I do now. I'm a restaurant manager. And at the time, there were these one franchise company, but they had a lot of Chili's franchises and a couple on the border franchises. And one of the on the borders and Chili's were in the same parking lot. And I was just finishing up my 3rd month of training as an assistant manager at the on the border when my husband received his promotion, and from the store he had been waiting tables, the Chili's he had been waiting tables at, he received a promotion and was sent to another store so he wouldn't be working as a manager in the same store that he was working as a team member in. And that was the location that in the same parking lot as mine. Now, at the time, We were both in relationships with other people. We actually look back and laugh on this now because I can't speak for him, but he wasn't on my radar. And for one thing, I wasn't even looking. Now the guy I was in a relationship with was someone I had met in high school when I was waiting tables. And he was someone who was kind of often, we didn't really start dating till I came back. And it was very often on, nothing really steady. So, but I still counted it as a relationship because I was kind of desperate to have a relationship. And my husband was also in a relationship at the time. I should say Anthony at this point, because at this point he definitely wasn't my husband. He was in a relationship too. I met him, I knew his name. He was a colleague in the restaurant next to mine. That was about it. And for 2 more years, that's exactly how it stayed. And this was in probably June, it would have been June of 2014 was when I called over to the Chili's because I was out of lettuce and I needed to get some lettuce. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, that itch was really bothering me. Now, being in the same company, we have the same parent company, we often would trade food. If someone was out and they need something, one restaurant would lend it to the other. So it was not abnormal. So I called over there and said I need some lettuce, and he's like, "Oh, sure, I can give you some." He was the manager on duty that night. So I went over there to get it, and normally I would just walk in the back kitchen door, go up to one of the cooks, tell him, "Hey, I'm from on the border, so I'm here to pick up," and that would be that. Well, this time, he came out the side door and met me halfway through the parking lot. I was like, okay, I guess he's trying to make it quicker for me. He just doesn't want me to go in. I don't know. And with the bag of lettuce, he also handed me his phone number. And it was the first time I had even, I had never even thought of him in that way at all. It was a complete surprise. I didn't know how to react. So I just took the phone number, said thank you, back into on the border. I gave it a few days. I thought about it for a while. He was so different than my normal type, the normal type of guy I went for. And I was also very scared because I had, young and dumb, had just gotten in trouble 4 months prior for having an inappropriate relationship with another manager in my store. So we were both assistant managers in the same store, and we were dating behind the company's back, which was against the relationship policy of the company. So I had gotten in trouble for that. I had not gotten fired, neither had he. He simply got transferred stores, and we ended up breaking up. It was messy. So I was terrified to even consider it because he worked for the company. And so that was actually my first thought, was I can't, because he works for the company. So I actually, before I did anything, I went and talked to my general manager at the time. And I asked him, hey, would this be inappropriate? Would I get in trouble for this? And he told me, no, it's a different store. You don't work together. You don't technically work together. That wouldn't violate the company policy of not working with your coworkers. So, sorry, buffing my nails. I was like, okay, and then I guess he's someone I could consider. But once again, he was still so different from anyone I ever, just for my type. He wasn't my type at all. But in the end, that was also the reason I said yes. Because clearly the type of guy I went for normally wasn't working. I had not had a successful relationship. My longest relationship had been 2 years, and it had ended in cheating, and him cheating on me. And it just, it wasn't ideal. My type wasn't working for me. So in the end, that's why I said yes. So when I had decided, I sent him a text, so the number he'd given me, and I got an automated message back saying that it was a landline that couldn't receive texts. Thought that was strange, and day and age, even in 2014, everyone texted. Even more so nowadays, but definitely then. But yeah, so okay. And so I think a week went by in total from the time he gave me his phone number to when I got a phone call at the store. Like he was calling me on the border. I was the manager on duty, so was he. And he wanted to do I wanted to do a food trade. He was letting me know it was his last night at that Chili's. He was being transferred to a different location again. And he wanted to now buy a food trade because we were the same company. We could make up like a whole bunch of on the border food, and he could make up a whole bunch of Chili's food, and we would just swap for our employees, so everyone could eat the other restaurant's food for a night, and we would just bring in the food that we sent to the other restaurant as the employee food for the night for inventory purposes. So I was like, okay, we can do a food trade. So we did, and then it was also inventory night. I remember that because we were both the closing managers, so we both had to count inventory, which meant you were going to be there past midnight, well past midnight. And on like a Friday, you expect to be. On Wednesday, you kind of like to be out by 10:30 or 10:30, 11 o'clock, so we closed at 10. But anyway, that aside, I got out around midnight, and I noticed his car was still parked in front of the Chili's. Or I put it this way, there was a car. I didn't know it was his yet. I assumed because he was the manager that was probably his car. So I just sat in my car for a few minutes and waited. It didn't take long. He came out shortly thereafter. And I went up to him, and I was just looking at the guys. Well, I thought I would come say bye since it's your last night. And then I guess I got brave and said, so I tried texting you, and it didn't work. And I showed him on my phone. And he's like, oh, the number's wrong. I was like, the number's wrong. He's like, yeah, that's not a 4, that's a 9. I was like, oh, okay. So he had the note he had written, I still have it to this day. He thinks it's hilarious that I kept that note because he'd scribbled it so quickly, and he was so nervous that he did, like, I guess it was just kind of, it was a 4, but it looked like, it was a 9, but looked like 4. Like, it could have been either number, I suppose. And I just assumed a different number than what it showed. So, anyway. We ended up talking, this was midnight when we left out, we ended up talking the rest of the night. At about 3 a.m. when the parking lot lights went out, we were like, we should probably head home. And it was, I would classify it as first date conversations. Obviously we knew what each other did, but it's like, what are your likes, what are your dislikes? But this about me, we were just getting to know each other. And there was nowhere to go in the middle of the night, literally. And then the sun started coming up around 5. And we're like, we should probably head home. Well, we still stuck around. And when people started showing up to open the restaurants, was when we finally were like, okay, we gotta go home. And by that point, I obviously had his number correct. He had my number at that point, and before the end of the day, he was texting me, asking me if I wanted to come to a house party he was having that night. And so I said yes so far to everything, so I went. Anyway, I won't drag on through like how long the rest of like our long elaborate dating story. But yeah, a month later in July, he asked me if I would be his girlfriend. Good old Facebook. And then a couple months later, he met my parents, and then I met his mom. And it was late September, I believe, when the first time I met Nina and her mom. I met them at the same time. I went with him to pick her up on a Friday afternoon. His ex-wife knew who I was, but to Nina, I was a friend. I was just a friend. In fact, we did not even tell her there was a relationship until we were engaged. He wanted it that way because of the way his last relationship had ended. He had one girlfriend in between his marriage with Nina's mother and me, and it did not end well. He felt like Nina lost out, paid the price. So we were just friends until we were engaged, and then we came out with it, and she was, of course, like, oh, well, I knew all along. This is a little 6-year-old would. So we got engaged. So at about 4 months into our relationship, we kind of had it figured out. It was like, okay, yeah, this is it. Like, we even talked about it, even like, this is it. There isn't anybody else. But because of how his relationship had gone down with Nina's mom, his marriage with her, he was in no hurry to get married again right away. and he was enjoying the bachelor life, having his own place. And yes, we did not live together. He had his place, I had mine, and we were both quite happy that way. So I did not move into his house or the apartment he had until our wedding day. Now, I would classify what I had as a nicer apartment, but it was also only a 1-bedroom, and with Nina, we would need a 2-bedroom. So we ended up getting engaged. It was November of the following year. So we started dating in July of 2014. We got engaged in November of 2015. And then we ended up getting married in July of 2016. So we had an 8-month engagement. Our pastor was trying to keep it, only have a 6-month engagement. Very strong believer in long courtship, short betrothal. Because temptations rise so much more once you get engaged. But a 6-month engagement would have meant we were getting married in May, which was the same month that my brother was getting married. And his wedding was taking place in Texas. Our wedding was taking place here in Maryland. And that was just, for our family's sake alone, I was just like, no, I'm not having a wedding the same month as my brother. Like that, our families will just be nuts going to both places. So, yeah, that didn't happen. But we got married in July. And it was outdoor. It was very pretty. Worked very hard on that wedding. And worked very hard to not owe a penny after the wedding day, to have all the bills for the wedding paid and not have any debt from it. No credit card bills, no loans, no nothing. Everything was paid. And that felt good. Now, granted, it also, because we were paying for it ourselves, it wasn't the most elaborate wedding, but, we were in our mid-20s. It was what it was. That was fine. And I was quite happy then. I had finally met my person. I was married. I had a child from the get-go. Although being a step-parent is, I will say, has its level of stressors that are different from being a parent. But any form of parent you are, you're still a parent. It took me a long time to really learn that lesson as a stepmom. It doesn't matter. Biological step, adopted, foster, you're a parent. You're a mom, you're a dad. That's what you are. You give your love and you give your heart just as much as if it were your own biological child. I wanted to have kids after only a year. Like a year married, I wanted to have kids right away. But where we had the 2-bedroom apartment we were living in was not conducive to that at all. There was no room for a baby there. It would have been even more cramped. It just wouldn't have been smart. So we ended up having to wait till we'd been married for 3 years. Well, Bruce came in right after about 3 years. So we'd been married for 3.5 years when Bruce was born. And if you've been following my channel, my videos, you know that we are currently in the journey to baby number 2. But yeah, so Bruce was born in January of 2020, right before the pandemic. That was fun, and he's an amazing little joy. Oh, excuse me. He's an amazing little boy, and love him to death. And so, speaking of my journey to baby number 2, I do have a doctor's or midwife kind of fertility miscarriage appointment follow-up. I did film some footage when I went last Monday. I will go ahead and insert that here, and then we'll talk about it. Hey guys, happy Monday, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there who may have celebrated yesterday, and to all the women out there who may want to be moms, and Mother's Day is a bittersweet day. I want you to know that I'm praying for you yesterday and today. I know how hard it can be. There were so many Mother's Days before I got married, and even after, that I just prayed so hard to be a mom. I thank the Lord, for my stepdaughter for the longest time, but I still had a deep, deep-hearted desire for a baby of my own. So I know your pain. I've been there. If you're struggling with fertility, I'm there right now. I'm actually sitting in the parking garage of my midwife's office. I'm getting ready to go in. It's been 3 weeks since my miscarriage, and this is like a miscarriage follow-up appointment, and we're gonna have a conversation, probably see if I need to seek any fertility assistance or if, they want me to keep trying for a while longer yet. I am so nervous. I'm not really 100% certain what to expect, but I don't know why. I've had this looming anxiety since yesterday. Not that anything's wrong, just I guess I really just don't know what to expect. I don't know what the outcome of this appointment is, and I'm nervous. So having Bruce was so easy compared to this. I never expected to go through, who does? Who does expect to go through fertility difficulties? So I'm praying that I have at least somewhat good news, and I'll definitely be following up with you all when I come out. I am not allowed to film inside, so if I do get anything, it'll be very small. So we'll see how this goes. Anyway, thanks for coming along with me. Hey guys, so I'm back in the car now. Alright, that was actually a very encouraging appointment. I feel like I want to cry because, I don't know, I'm just feeling so emotional around this topic. But good news overall, because it's only been 2 miscarriages. They don't classify it as serial miscarriage yet. So there is still a good hope. They're sending me to get my progesterone levels tested just to make sure that they're where they should be. And if they're not, they're going to begin prescribing progesterone immediately so that when I do become pregnant, the pregnancy will sustain well. And if not, then they'll wait until I get a positive pregnancy test and send me again for progesterone testing. And also I'll have to go see the OB that they work with to get a whole panel of tests done, basically to see if there's anything that they can see right off that they could change to help prevent any miscarriage from happening. So hopefully it's just something, if it is something small that we can fix, wonderful. So I'm really excited and hopeful that this, I don't want to say I'm hopeful that something's wrong. I guess I kind of really hope there's something that's easily fixable and that I don't have to stress over, but we'll just have to see what the results show and keep going from there. So I'm probably going to go get the test done. Well, I'm going to do that either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and then probably let the results come in before I post this video so that you'll immediately be able to know what my results show. So thank you guys for hanging in there with me. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos and all the support you guys give. Thank you so much. I love you. Okay, so as you can see in the footage, I had to go get a progesterone blood draw, a progesterone test. I'm assuming that it came back normal. I was having a very hard time reading the results as there were so many different ranges of normal on there. And but my midwife never called me. She said she would call me if it was abnormal or if we would need to do supplementation. And I'm guessing that we do not because she never called, and it is several days later. It has been well over 72 hours. And my office normally calls same day you get the results. And we got the results the next morning after the footage you just saw. It is on the lower range, of the lower end of the normal range, but it is still in the normal range. So that's a good thing. But yeah, so I think I said in the clip, right now the plan is once I get another positive pregnancy test, we will just go in, they'll send me into these maternal fetal medicine, what they work with in the hospital. My midwives are part of the hospital, and do some miscarriage prevention work. So hopefully I won't lose another baby. But yeah, so for right now, I'm just going to keep trying and see what happens. And I think that's probably brings you about up to date with the crazy, very quick reiteration of what my life has been to this point. I ended up deciding to do YouTube because it's a way of expressing myself, of sharing with the world, and it makes me feel creative, and it's a different sort of community. So I'm very happy to anyone, grateful to anyone who's out there watching my videos. I value it so much. You are amazing. If you are a mom or a parent, you are amazing. It does not matter how you came to be a parent. You are an amazing person and you do an awesome job. It really is work being a parent, but it's the best work I could ever hope for, being a mom. So I am almost done getting these nails on. I'll give you a little show of what, a little peek of what this hand looks like. They're very basic nails. So what I like to do after they've sit for a little bit, I'll go in and I'll file down the ends, because there's always this little annoying little tip on the very end. So I'll file them down, but they look good. But these are going on really well, and they're sticking good. So I'm hoping they'll hold up for maybe a week. They never really last much longer than that. Maybe a little longer, but it's just something to cover my nails with. Make them look better, feel better. So if you have any specific questions, or any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I would love to do a Q&A. I'm so grateful to all of you who are a part of my channel and this journey together. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next one. Love you guys.